Good afternoon. With past 4:30, we have a quorum. The Bills Committee on Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2013, the 16th meeting is now called to order. We'll continue our meeting with the administration, and as usual, as the chairman, I declare interests. I own property, and I'm an accountant, and my employer provides all kinds of tax service, but I'm not involved in the present stamp duty business. I declare what I have declared. Yes, Mr. James To, I declare what I have declared. Mr. Yang Chi-Chang. Yes, I declare what I have declared before. Mr. Wong Teng-Kong. I declare what I have declared before. All right.
繼續與政府當局會面。咁上一次呢
Right. At our last meeting, the Policy Secretary came to the Bills Committee meeting and gave a speech. I just want to know whether there will be documents on the technical amendments to be, or the adjustments to be made. Chairman, in response of the previous meeting, we've talked to the DOJ and also the IRD, and we have been working on the proposed CSAs. And in the CSAs, we have also provided some explanation. The Secretariat is now printing that. My apologies. We cannot give the documents to you earlier. As for the technical amendments, in fact, last Friday we provided the paper to the Secretariat. Those were CSAs, yes, indeed. And after the announcement was made, the people in the trade also asked for the day of commencement. Now, the time for replacement for exchange of property will be extended. So we want to know whether it is at the time when the announcement is made, and that will not affect those who replace their properties. Ms. Abraham Sheikh is here, and we've discussed all the amendments of other members. And I've talked to Mr. Sheikh, and we will first deal with Mr. Abraham Sheikh's CSA.
會去講述嘅。咁啊，石議員請你講講你嘅 CSA。
Mr. Sheikh, would you please declare your declare? Yes, I declare my interest. My CSAs, they are quite simple. Can I go over them one by one? Clause 3, I propose to delete it. Clause 13 and also 8.5.
Clause 3 to be read with the deletion of Clause 8(5). This CSA will remove the bill's proposal to advance the payment of stamp duty for non-residential properties to at the time of signing of agreement of sale and purchases. The status quo of payment at the time of conveyancing will stay. 呢個 clause 第3嘅 clause 第8呢
That is clause 3. As for clause 8, it is just the same as clause 3, which I have read out.
5嗰段即係頭先我讀緊
clause 8.5. And then clause 18. Under 29 DF3A, 6 months. I extend it to 12 months. I hope it will be extended to 12 months, but I may consider withdrawing this, and I'm considering it. I just read it out first. I'm considering whether I will withdraw this part because the administration has certain amendments. I may amend clause 18. This is related. I find the administration's proposal acceptable. I will withdraw my amendment to clause 18. As for clause 10, clause 10.
9A1 the conveyances of stamp duty at Scale 1 rates and Scale 2 rates, yet except as provided in Section Bracket 2 and Sections 29A to J to 29AQ, a conveyance of sales is chargeable with stamp duty under Scale 1 of Head 1 Bracket 1 in the first schedule. E. A conveyance of sale of non-residential property is chargeable with stamp duty under Scale 2 of Head 1 Bracket 1 in the first schedule. B. In the proposed Section 29AL Bracket 3 Bracket B, Bracket 3 Bracket B, by deleting or both non-residential properties. Effect: complete exemption of double stamp duty on non-residential properties. This CSA deals with conveyance of sales. 咁咧，跟住 the clause 13 啊 ，the clause of
And then clause 13.
of double stamp duty on residential properties. This CSA deals with the agreement of sale. 係。
唔好意思，我先提一提同事先。
Well, I just remind members that the amendment by Mr. Sheikh is CB 1138/1314 bracket 02 and CB 11847/1213 bracket 01. As for the administration's reply, CB 188/1314 bracket 01. Will the Secretariat provide information to members? In fact, we discuss other amendments. I was at clause 13, and then now move on to clause 16.
Bracket 3
Deleting subclause 1213 bracket 12, 6, 7, 8, 9.
29D bracket 2. The effect is amendments to keep intact the word residential in the current ordinance, rather than adopting the bill's proposed word immovable, which would include non-residential properties. That's clause 16. 係咁多啦，主席。
That's all, Madam Chairman. Oh yes, one more. Clause 23.
71A, by deleting "and" at the end of paragraph B of the definition, inverted commas, additional stamp duty, close inverted commas. B, by deleting the paragraph C of the definition of additional stamp duty, close bracket. The effect is consequential amendment to remove the bill's reference to non-residential properties. Clause 24. A, by deleting subclause 9, bracket 9. B, by deleting subclause 15 and substituting first schedule head 1, bracket 1A, close bracket. Repeal note 1, substitute note 1. This subhead does not apply to an agreement of sale in respect of non-residential property. See section 29A, bracket 5, close bracket. This subhead applies to the agreement for sale according to sections 29BA to 29BI. Effect: consequential amendment 1, to keep intact the word residential in the current ordinance rather than adopting the bill's proposed word immovable, which would include non-residential properties, and 2, to remove the coverage of note 1 on the non-residential property. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Okay, the Permanent Secretary, would you respond to Mr. Sheikh's view, or rather the DS, Deputy Secretary? Thank you for the amendments. Concerning the paper, in fact, it is a further amendment. The first draft was on the 30th of September, and Mr. Sheikh proposed exemption to non-residential property, and then he has also asked to extend the replacement property, the exemption for replacement property from 6 months to 12 months. As for the extension, in the first draft, we responded to Mr. Sheikh, but as said by Mr. Sheikh just now when the Secretary came concerning the 6 months grace period, the Secretary has announced the adjusted scheme. We will give the administration's amendment to for members' perusal. With regard to CB 11449 bracket 01, we focus on the non-residential property part of the amendment, and we have looked into that concerning the amendments to individual clauses. The objective is to enable non-residential property transactions to be included as in the definition of immovable property, so that there will be exemption. And then the time for ADV, it will be charged upon the completion of the conveyance process rather than advance it to the signing of the S&P. The administration's response is that we have to take into account our overall demand management measure. And our objective is that under the AVD, we double the stamp duty. The objective is to approach this, to apply the same to residential and non-residential property market, so as to change market expectation, and also to prevent the expansion of rampant speculation from residential property market to non-residential property market. In fact, the Secretary has also addressed this point with regard to the technical amendment the administration proposed. You might have still noticed that the market is still very turbulent, and it is very sensitive to any news. We need to maintain the integrity and effectiveness of our measures to prevent the property market from becoming more overheated again after upon any news of adjustment in our policy. We have very tight or stringent conditions for giving exemptions, and this is closely tied with the housing needs of Hong Kong permanent residents. I think we should adopt the same approach. We have considered the overall policy objectives of our measures, and we have taken into account the market sensitivity. And with regard to Mr. Sheik's exemption on exempting non-residential property from AVD, or double AVD, we cannot agree with him. Our explanation is given in detail in the paper. At the previous meeting, the Policy Secretary has also paid its attention to the impact of the measures on the business environment as well as the property market.
He has undertaken to, that is, if the bill becomes law, then within a year there will be a review in order that timely adjustments could be made in the light of the changes in the property market, and report to LegCo accordingly. Chairman, Madam Chair, my CSA reflects the actual situation in the market. In my proposed amendment, I agree that the government should not encourage any form of speculation. The original intent of the bill is to enable Hong Kong people to able to buy properties in Hong Kong, and their property prices will not go up every month, and we all agree on that. So in my amendment, I have not changed the original intent of the government in respect of residential properties. I'm only focusing on non-residential properties. I think one cannot say that there is a lot of speculation in the non-residential property market. Some information for the administration: in 2012, transactions in respect of office properties. In 2013, it dropped to 1,000 677 transactions, and the year before it was 3,169. It's down 37%. So you don't just look at Canton Road. If you look at the whole market, in 2013, there were only 4,309 transactions. The year before that, it was 7,282. So it was down by 41%. For factory buildings, industrial buildings, in 2013, it was 4,264. The year before it was 9,731, so it's down 57%. So I don't see any speculation in this market. Also remember that it is the SMEs who buy these non-residential properties for their own use and for investment purpose. And the prices have not dropped. It has not gone up a lot either, so it has more or less stayed the same. I understand that nobody can ask the government to do anything. The government will do something if it, wants to do it. So the government doesn't, talk about. It's not about reason. It's whether or not the administration has the will. Mr. Chen, the secretary, said that after the bill becomes law, there will be a review every year. But I don't want the transaction to continue to decline in the market, because the livelihood of many people depend on such properties, and right now, because there is a shortage of supply and there are few transactions, rentals will go up. As a result, many SMEs have been very much affected, and that would also in turn affect our economy, given that 90% of the businesses in Hong Kong are SMEs. So I hope that, since in the absence of any speculation, I don't think you should adopt such a broad brush approach, because it will be detrimental to our economy. They don't adopt the same approach in Singapore. In Singapore, after they've collected a double stamp duty, and if you don't, so even in the case of urban renewal, the government will give a rebate to the SMEs. So why do they have to pay this price? So that is the rationale for my CSA. I just want to reflect the actual situation. We have one member who would like to speak, Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Having heard Mr. Abraham Shack expressing his views, I really have this. Last week when the secretary came to meet with us, he explained his two policies, which is also referred to in this paper. That is, extending the period to 6 months. Basically, is allowing for 1 or 2 more months. But the effect is that for people who want to replace the old property for a replacement property, it's only a month or so. For those who are buying pre-sale property, it could be longer. And then a few days later, the news have been saying that this policy is inclined towards new properties, meaning that it is encouraging. Objectively, it will encourage people who want to replace the properties to buy new properties, because they will have to pay. The stamp duty will be waived. Whereas for those who want to buy from the secondary market, the impact will not be very significant. And then today, Mr. Sheikh said that he wanted to waive the 6-month period. So they seem to be teaming up behind the scene. I don't know whether the government is working together with the developer and coming up with this trick so that when buyers want to buy properties, they would buy new properties instead of old properties. According to Mr. Sheikh, the policy now changes the period from 6 to 12 months. It doesn't differentiate between old and new properties. So now Mr. Sheikh wants to cancel this policy. So he's actually putting work working behind the scene with the government, because Mr. Sheikh represents the property developers. And so my question is, when this policy was launched, did the government have any agreement with the property developers, and that's why you've come up with this policy? Mr. Sin, are you asking a question about the measures that Mr. Chen, the secretary, told us about? We're now discussing Mr. Sheik's CSEs. After the government introduced the new measures, Mr. Sheik said he will withdraw his CSEs. Well, Mr. Sheik's CSA has been submitted to this Bills Committee a long time ago. Yes, I know. All right, you've asked your question. Permanent Secretary? If I may respond to Mr. Sin's question, I'll ask the Permanent Secretary to respond first, and then Mr. Sheik can supplement. Secretary Sheik can answer the question. Well, a simple response, Madam Chair. Since May last year, where we formed this Bills Committee, and until this year, at the second meeting, the Madam Chair met with the deputations, and different individuals also suggested that the replacement, the arrangement for replacing properties, that they had some comment about the time restriction and whether or not they suggested whether or not some measures could be in place to make it convenient for people who want to replace their properties. During that period of time, many electrical members put forward the different ideas and proposals. Specifically, several members move amendments, and some members, other than focusing on the existing properties, they also raised the point about pre-sale properties. When we analyzed the pre-sale market, we carefully pointed out that whenever the government considers this issue, we must adopt an equally fair and consistent approach. So we've considered all the views that we have received, and having analyzed all the inputs, and we've also looked at the arrangement in respect of people who need to replace the properties. We believe that we need to maintain this 6-month period as a starting point, and on that basis we put forward the adjustment proposal. We have to take into consideration, on the one hand, the need for local residents to buy the properties, and not really catering to the interests of any particular groups or property developers' interests. Mr. Sheik, regarding the 3 draconian measures, I am a representative of the property developers and also as a member of the public. I am against these draconian measures, especially the BSD and the double stamp duty, and I have made more efforts than the Democratic Party, although Mr. James To has also put in a lot of time and effort on this bill. I hope Mr. Sin will spend more time, and I don't think he should put forward any conspiracy theory and allege that the property developers are colluding with the government. If that is the case, Mr. Sin, we wouldn't have what is happening now. I'm just pointing out what is right. The property developers also do not want the market to be volatile. We want a stable market. So the spirit of the legislation, when the SSD was launched, I did not object. I was also against the BSC, but the Democrats did not, voted against that, and indirectly they support the government imposing the BSD, and that is very unfair to local residents, especially those under the age of 18. So in this regard, I can tell you that the property developers have not come to any agreement with the administration. They have not even talked about it. I did not say that I will amend my CSA. I said I will consider amending my CSA. I was considering amending the period from 6 to 12 months. But the government now is allowing those those who want to replace property for 2 months. So a difference is only about 2 to 3 months. So do we really need to impose this amendment in order to have 2 or 3 or 4 months, since the government has already offered that? So I would welcome other members moving the amendment, which I would also support. But we need to look at the actual circumstances, especially the DP. Whenever I propose anything, they will never support me. And all of a sudden, they seem to be supporting my bill. I hope they will. That is for the non-residential properties, they will support my CSA. Stand alone. Regarding what Mr. Sin's said earlier, perhaps he had not attended many of our meetings. In reality, for replacement of property, many members, although we had put forward a proposal, the DAB and Mr. Tony Chair also made some suggestions regarding pre-sale properties, because pre-sale properties, after you bought it, you cannot immediately occupy the premises. And especially for pre-sale properties, why do I need to pay tax? Because I have to wait for 2 more months, 2 years or so before I can move into the properties. I think Mr. James TO has also made the same point. So the government now has accepted this proposal, and I think this is for the benefit of the public. For non-residential properties, many members are only concerned about the general public. But actually, commercial properties or non-commercial properties, and many SMEs will need to use them as well, because they need to expand the businesses so that they can hire more people and create more employment, more jobs to develop our economy. To penalize them and to punish them by asking them to pay the double stamp duty is not fair. It is also, given also the SME are now facing all the adverse economic environment, they will only make it even tougher for them. So are you, stopping the SMEs to expand the business for the sake of our economy? Why do we need to punish the SMEs? We say the government should consider this. So if we follow the example of Singapore, after someone has bought the property for his or own use, so 3 or 5 years later, you can give him a rebate of the amount. If you can prove that he was not, he did not buy the property for speculative purpose. All the draconian measures are aimed against speculation. But now the actual effect is that you are stopping people from buying properties as a long-term investment and for their own self-use. I mean, if you don't remove these measures, the rentals will all go up, and they simply cannot survive. So I would like to appeal to members to support this. This is definitely not for the interests of property developers, but rather for the interests of the SMEs. Permanent Secretary, after the measure was launched, how has that how effective has it been in terms of curbing speculation, and how it will affect those who buy properties for the self-use? For non-residential properties, we've been monitoring the market in terms of the turnover and the prices, and the public is also concerned about the question of rent. We have found that in 2012, 2013, for non-residential properties, be it the retail premises, office, and industrial buildings, rents have been steadily going up rather sharply. And after we've introduced our measures by mid-2013 to mid-2014, during this year, we found that the monthly increase in rentals have been steadily softening, and the number of transactions have also been dropping, and so prices have remained stagnant.
In the short term, this may cause inconvenience to the business sector and the SMEs in particular, but high rents and high property prices do affect business as well. We believe that these demand management measures are able to cool down the market, and that is reflected in prices and rent or rent level. If we send any message that we are going to give exemption or make any adjustment to the non-residential property market, there may be risks. Next, Mr. Lam Tai Fai. Thank you, Chairman. I have all along criticized the SARG for favoring too much the financial services sector or the financial sector and the property development sector. The administration has paid little attention to industrial development. Many criticize Abraham Sheikh. He represents the property sector. anything that is related to land and property will cause suspicion against him. In the past, there are, with regard to certain policies, his behavior and speeches caused people to suspect that he favor the property sector, in particular the major developers. But with regard to BSD, he has never done so. On the first day of the meeting of the BSD or DSD, he openly, and he also talked to me privately, that he will move amendments to non-residential buildings and also to the period of exemption. In fact, that was at the start of studying the bill, so there is no conspiracy. As for DSD, for non-residential property, Mr. Chan, Professor Chen, came to give an explanation, but the explanation was not clear, and the arguments didn't hold any water, and most of the members didn't understand what he said. And up till now, I don't believe that the DSS, or DSD rather, doesn't help people in respect of non-residential property. The worry that the speculation will spread from residential to non-residential property is only is over worried, and it is just very simple. And he claims to be an economist, yet he claims to be an economist, and he's not able to explain. Ms. Chen just said that the property prices have cooled down, rents have cooled down. Who told you so? Have you conducted any survey on rents? And on rent, in fact, rent has been rising. So property is about rate of return, or rent is rate of return property. And when property prices fall, then the return goes up, even if rent remains unchanged. Say property price is 3 million, and then 10% return 3 million in terms of rent. If property prices has fallen to $25 million, the rate of return is higher. That the cost of operation is still high. I have not heard that there is decline in rent. You should provide information on flatted factories and shops which have reduced their rentals. I don't agree that rents have come down. Now, concerning the prices and rentals of non-residential property, we have provided very detailed information. Today, we just provide our policy analysis on Mr. Sheik's amendments, and we provide the technical comments. Our position has been clear. Last time when the Secretary came, he explained that the administration had absorbed the views of the Bills Committee, and we have shown our good view. We have considered your suggestions. I asked you to cancel DSD for non-residential property, but you have not taken on board our view. How can you say you have taken on board that? I have a question for Ms. Abraham Shek. On the 7th of May, I wrote to you on CSAs. Is there a 1 or 2 page explanation? Is there any 1 or 2 page explanatory memorandum? Say, for example, I look at 3 cross out subclause 3, and then I have to match that with others. If other parts, if we have 1 or 2 pages, I think I'm familiar with the bill, but I thought cannot figure out the implications. Are you asking Mr. Sheck? I think it's done by his assistant, and I think his assistant can do it. Maybe just write 1 or 2 pages. Just give us a heading, just like the administration did. Say clause 3. By deleting clause 3, what is the effect? What is the equivalent of this effect? Then we can form an idea in our minds more quickly. I also want to respond to Ms. Abraham Sheck. I have considered a few dozen pages of CSAs. And the administration is very concerned about negative vetting. Now, in the last few minutes of the Policy Secretary's speech, he said something. He said that he would consider the complexity of the matter. And now that's very important. Whether the administration is going to do this bit or that bit, it will have a bearing on what I'm going to do. After Mr. Sheck, can I also speak on the 10 or 20 items? Because my assistant is working on this. This pile is very big. I don't know whether the administration has already taken on board my suggestions. Well, I hope I can speak on the areas covered by amendments. And I'll try my best to provide my paper as soon as possible. I think Mr. To's view is just his personal view. Well, I think Mr. Sheck takes away all the newly added taxes for non-residential property. Can I understand it this way? Chairman, if I may draft a simple paper for Mr. To and other members who are interested. In fact, I have provided that. I have produced that. But I have a special meeting with the MTRC on the express rail, so I have not read it out in detail. In fact, the amendments are very clear. If members need more explanation, if members want to know why I have changed, the ideas behind it, I am happy to draft a paper, and then I can provide it. As for the second point, I think let us focus on Mr. Sheck's amendment, Mr. Sheck's amendments first, and then we'll deal with your proposal. Now, I want to know what is the situation before he changed his mind, and then what part of his mind has been changed, or what thinking has been changed. Over such long discussions, in fact, my thinking is keeping pace with the change of times. I just perfect my CSA. I'm just going for perfection. Now, Mr. To, you say whether you are going to, whether you are still considering your amendment. Yes, Mr. Sheck, you said that you were considering your amendment, right? Whether to withdraw it or not. Yes, yes, indeed, I'll inform you in due course. I have Mr. James to declare interest. I'm involved in property development. Mr. Sheck represents the real estate sector. Now, I seldom spoke at the meetings. The Liberal Party has stated that we oppose that. It will not benefit the property sector. The buyers will pay more. Now, property prices will go down a few percentage points, but the administration will just will get the added tax, added revenue, but it will not help buyers. I may not have specific views in relation to the amendments, but I'll just take up 2 or 3 minutes. The property market is difficult to forecast. not just looking down the road for 10 years. But if you look down the road for 4 or 5 years, it's still very difficult for you to make any forecast. I do property markets. I didn't deal with shops. I have many party members who are paying rent on their shops. And I've noticed that the rentals for shops have gone down substantially. Now, the most important thing is there is business. If there is no business, rentals will go down. Now, the downward trend in rentals is a result of the decline in number of visitors. Without visitors, there is no business, and therefore shops have no business, and so rents go down. As for rents for office, it is declining. As for rent for residential property is also declining. And I don't think they are related to the present bill. Whether the bill is passed or not, I think within half a year you will have to withdraw your measures because the markets will be so low that you will remove these so-called harsh measures. It's different from doing manufacturing. I receive an order and then after 3 months I ship the goods. But the property market is very difficult to forecast. The situation may swing from port to starboard. We are affected by interest rates overseas. There is also the issue of number of visitors, and there are also disputes, cross-border disputes. Why we invest in Hong Kong? Why don't we go to Shanghai? If I buy things are more than 100,000 renminbi, then I'll get tax rebates, which is equivalent to an air ticket. So many rich visitors are not coming to Hong Kong anymore. Whether the bill is passed or not, by the end of this year, according to the current trend of the market, well, I'm not very confident that I'm always accurate. But just by the end of the year, the problem will no longer be there, and the administration will remove its measures. Okay, thank you. If members do not have further questions on Mr. Sheikh TSE, then we'll stop here on as far as Mr. TSE is concerned. Mr. To asked whether there is any final decision on negative vetting. I just want that has a bearing on his amendments. So I just want to know what is the administration's position. I just remind members to have completed clause-by-clause study of the bill. If members have any CSAs, please provide the CSAs ASAP so that we can discuss the CSAs all together. If you have a lot of CSAs, Mr. To, please provide the CSAs to the committee so that we can discuss the CSAs.
Regarding the subject of negative vetting, at the last meeting, the Secretary had already heard the views expressed by members. In his speech, he also confirmed that the various mechanisms of adjustments proposed by members, it's rather complicated if we were to implement that in the bill, because it will affect the AVD, the BSD, and it doesn't affect a single tax rate either. After the meeting on Tuesday last week, we have been working hard on what the Secretary said, that is the technical amendments in respect of the adjustments. And we're now working on the CSAs and our explanation. And we're able to submit them to the committee today. Regarding negative vetting, it affects the method of adjustment for the bill. Earlier, we had taken on board the different points raised by members. That is how this bill will have impact on other legislation. As the Secretary said last time, we are now looking into that. We will deal with it very seriously. So if we have come up with a detailed analysis and come to a position, we will come back to this committee. So today we are here to, first of all, submit the CSA regarding the amendment. So, Mr. To, in that case, I'm forced to work on my CSA, my few dozens of CSAs. Originally I thought that there are a few things that I don't need to do. If that's the government's position, never mind. If I've prepared my CSAs and if I've submitted them, I will not withdraw them. I wouldn't be like Mr. Scheck. But anyway, fine. Madam Chair, would you like the administration to speak first, or before I explain the scope of my CSAs? I think that has always been the way we deal with CSA. Once we receive CSAs from members, we arrange for discussion. And it applies to other members as well. No, the administration said that they want to move CSA, they would all have a paper. No, they haven't, completed the CSAs, and yet they would still give us a paper to just say, I'm saying that I'm going to move my CSA. If you want, I can prepare a paper. Mr. Scheck has not yet had his papers ready. If members want to listen to me, I can speak. If not, then I'll just, stop. The scope that I work on will affect other members' CSAs, whether they want to, the areas which touch other members' CSA. If other members already work on that, I don't want to duplicate the effort, especially if other members who have lots of resources and we have the same and we have a consensus, and I don't think I need to do it. But we still have many papers yet to discuss, so we'll deal with the CSAs when they are available. Next, I think we can discuss Mr. James To's paper, that is Administration's Response 1138-1314-01. Permanent Secretary, if you're ready. Madam Chair, I'd like to confirm whether are you referring to the letter from Mr. To dated the 16th of April, in which he raised a dozen or so questions? I'd like to thank Mr. To's office to raise those questions pursuant to the last meeting. He outlines various scenarios, and he would like us to provide the facts and a detailed response. This paper, I think for this paper, we have used a table to list out all the scenarios. For the convenience of members, the different scenarios can be summed up into the following. First of all, previously when we discussed this, if it involves the instrument, which involves residential and non-residential properties, and also including car parks, what would be the different tax arrangements? And secondly, Mr. To at previous meetings have made reference to the question of replacement properties and the arrangements in respect of the various scenarios. And thirdly, the exemption for transfer of non-residential properties between closely related persons. And fourthly, the proposed exemption in respect of acquisition of public housing units under the TPS. And fifthly, exemption arrangement for Hong Kong permanent residents who are minors or mentally incapacitated persons in the acquisition of residential properties through trustees and guardians. And number 6, the proposed exemption for charitable bodies. He asked whether the government would consider providing an exemption, as in the case of BSD. All the scenarios touched on by this paper have been discussed at previous meetings. So we've therefore provided our response in the paper. For example, we had discussed the issue of charitable bodies, trustees acting on behalf of minors, and so on. We do have policies explaining our position. So in our response, we have also made reference to the relevant legislative papers in which we've already provided our responses. For the scenarios mentioned in this paper, for example, if the instrument involves the acquisition of a property and a car park, how do we deal with that? And secondly, if in the instrument more than one residential unit is involved, how do we deal with that? So at the last meeting, members already had a discussion, and in respect of residential property plus car parks and the exemption arrangements, we have taken on board the concerns expressed by members the last time, and we've made some corresponding amendments, and the Secretary had already offered an explanation to members. If the instrument includes residential property or more than one residential unit, our policy consideration, I think we already explained our policy position last time. So this paper, members should read this paper against this background, because some of the scenarios have already been followed upon, as we continue our discussion of the bill. Mr. To, so far the administration, I think in the new set of documents, they've not touched on the question of one, if I'm wrong, please correct me, in a single instrument, if someone buys more than one property, then I think there shouldn't be any exemption. And then I think the buyer should not simply pay the stamp duty, but double the amount of stamp duty. Regarding the fourth question, I did ask you how many, and you've come up, you say 2011, 2012, 5,000 units, and then 2012, 2013, there were 6,622, 13, 14, there were 3,448. So even without a double stamp duty, without this, they still have several thousand such transactions. In other words, well, not to mention that they're deliberately trying to circumvent the double stamp duty, it's very likely that all of a sudden you have several thousand transactions. Of course, these could include residential plus non-residential properties. Of course, some may involve car parks, because you may treat car parks as non-residential. But at least, according to my rough estimate, there have been 1,000 or so transactions involving more than one residential unit. If you provide for this exemption, there would be more. Number will not go down. Say someone buys several property units through one instrument, I mean, there will be only more of these cases. So there will definitely be a possibility that more people will circumvent or abuse the system, rather. So is the government still insisting on the requirement that if someone buys multiple residential units through one instrument, will be exempted from the BSD? Mr. To is referring to column 4 in the table. The question here is that in a single instrument, if it involves both residential and non-residential properties, how many of them cover such both types of properties? So we have conducted a very detailed analysis of the figures, and I can give members more information. In 2113, on the 22nd of February, after we've launched the measures and until the end of March this year, if we take about a year's time, and if we look at the figures for residential property only, the number was 1,000 or so transactions, the majority of which involved 2 or 3 properties units. And for those involving 3, 4 or more property units, the number was extremely small. And compare that with the figures in previous years, again, they have been relatively stable. For this particular subject, I can also respond to Mr. Paul TSE question. That is, previously when we announced the measure, what was the government's position? And today we also have a paper regarding our response regarding the question of stamp duty, and when we respond to Mr. Paul TSE's concern, we've also prepared a paper. So after we've launched the BSD, that is, we charge the stamp duty based on instrument-based transactions, and that has remained unchanged. And after we've introduced the measures, we immediately uploaded the measures onto the website of the government and the IRD. In the FAQs, we've explained clearly that the stamp duty will be charged on the basis will be instrument based. So the policy has always been very consistent, and we also want to send out a clear message to the market so that there won't be any confusion. So we've dealt with it very carefully. In the past, when in our two meetings with the Law Society, we have already provided a paper to respond to the questions, and the paper is also submitted to this Bills Committee. And we've also stated our position. And the instrument-based system has always been our approach, and we have noticed members' question as to why have we not attempted to change the system, and what are the complications in doing so. Regarding the need to acquire property by Hong Kong residents, we believe that in designing the BSD, we cannot rule out that some individuals, for their own personal needs, may not only property at the moment, but through a single instrument they may buy more than one property. And if we were to tighten the restriction in this respect, then the whole policy and the whole system will be regarded as draconian. So the message sent out to the market, we cannot overlook the impact on the market. And when we study this issue, that if some people, because they need to buy properties and they buy, if the property they bought, if it involves a different lease in the Lands Department, if we were to come up with some objective standard, it will result in controversies. So we've considered the BSD, we've also considered the BSD and the measures surrounding those them. A government's position is still remain the same. That is, we do not want to restrict the force of these measures. Well, Permanent Secretary, I think we've discussed this measure many times already. Is that your final position? That is, you will not change your policy in respect of people buying more than one unit through a single instrument?
呢一個你哋唔會改㗎啦。
You won't change your position. No, we won't. Well, we've debated that many times before, but I still allow the floor to give Mr. To the floor. I hope that this can be the amendment of this Bills Committee, which is to be moved by the chairman and drafted by our legal advisor. I don't know that is the time. If you ask me to give notice so that members can vote on this. Well, I have not heard any dissenting view. I don't need to claim that I will move the amendment. If at all possible, you make a note. There aren't too many members attending today's meeting. Maybe the Secretary can put that in the notice to members. You need to move a motion. What was the situation for the stamp duty 2012? You need to move a motion. It's not my CSA. Of course, I can draft a CSA which will become the CSA of the subcommittee, of the Bills Committee. But I think the CSA should be drafted by the legal advisor, and then the chairman will move the motion. We will move the amendment, not the legal advisor. I don't see why I should draft the CSA and then make it as a gift to the Bills Committee. My assistant is working flat out. Maybe the legal advisor can chip in here. I think Mr. To needs to move a motion. If the motion is passed, then the legal advisor the Secretariat will draft the amendment. Yes, I ask the talk to the legal advisor on moving a motion. Legal advisor. Chairman, my understanding is that Mr. To wants the Bills Committee to move an amendment to change the present arrangement, i.e., one instrument cannot buy more than one property and pay the old AVD. According to normal procedure, this will be a decision of this Bills Committee. We need a motion, and after voting, and then everything can follow. Yes, in fact, I hope the chairman will move the motion. But if you ask me to move the motion, I will move that motion. And after the motion is passed, then people can work on that. We cannot just let one person do all the work. Okay, Mr. To, please move the motion. Chairman, I'll continue to ask the next question concerning the exemption for close relatives in respect of non-residential property. Now, in fact, I want relaxation for close relatives between the father-in-law and sister-in-law, or a father-in-law and daughter-in-law. Now, we have the wedding of the century. If the father-in-law gives a shop to the son, or rather the father gives the shop to the son, and if there is no exemption, then you'll find it really mind-boggling. Now, your concern is about abuse. Now, I want to buy a shop from that person, from the owner. How can I be his son? Of course not. Not even a foster relationship. You don't recognize a foster relationship. If Mr. To asks for relaxation to the daughter-in-law, then I'll see whether the owner. I'm a woman. Okay, let's not talk about change in sex. Biologically, I'm a woman. Say, I know the shop owner, and the shop owner has a son, and then I marry the son of the shop owner, and then the owner will transfer the property to the daughter-in-law, and then I get the exemption. Are you afraid of this abuse? And then I will divorce. I'll get a divorce, and then I will dodge the double stamp duty. Are you afraid of this abuse with regard to giving exemption to close relatives in this regard? Now, let's talk about the son. The son inherits the shop or buys the shop from the father. Do you think that's an abuse? That will cause speculation? Or will that be a bogus transaction Now, the shop is of no value or low value. Say, for example, it's worth only $100 million, and then the son buys it at $1 billion, and therefore it's going to cause a bogus transaction and speculate and try to drive prices up, drive the prices of the shops nearby up. Why you don't exempt non-residential property with regard to close transactions between close relatives? Now, you have said it many times before. The first argument is the chance of abuse is very small. Unless the administration can prove me wrong, I really don't understand it. You can't just repeat your point. That's useless. You need to put forward your argument, which can stand. I urge the administration to respond and whether it is the final position. If that is, then the member may consider moving an amendment to deal with that. The DS, with regard to the coverage of close relatives, we will follow the BSD, the DSD, and also this WAVD. As for non-residential property, we have no intention to provide the same treatment as residential property. We maintain our position. We will not provide any special exemption under certain circumstances. Mr. To, with the aid of the legal advisor, I try to draft a motion for the next meeting so that members can decide whether this amendment can be a consensus of the Bills Committee. If it is, then the chairman will move the amendment to give exemption to non-residential property transaction conducted between close relatives. I just give notice that I will do so. I just want to remind members, Mr. To has at least moved two motions to ask this Bills Committee to make a decision as to whether we will move an amendment to give exemption to do away with the exemption of buying property, buying more than one property basing on one instrument, and also extending the coverage of exemption to non-residential property transaction conducted between close relatives. And that is the second limb, or second part. As for close relatives, the area should be extended to the in-laws. To further extend it so that more relatives can be included in the exemption, as between the in-laws, say father-in-law with son-in-law or father-in-law with daughter-in-law. The DS, we've already touched on that concerning the coverage of close relatives. No, we have no intention to change that for BSD, DSD, or AVD or WAVD. Yes, I will move a notice to see if the Bills Committee will adopt this as the CSA by the Bills Committee. In fact, the DS has responded specifically to the written questions of Mr. Paul Chair. I don't know whether he has already dealt with that. Are you happy with that? No, of course not. Let me finish with Mr. To's letter before I move on to your letter. Well, it is on the same issue of instrument-based transaction. Well, in fact, we should discuss the papers one by one. And she mentioned your name, so I allow her to speak on that. Let us continue to look at Mr. To, the response to Mr. To's questions, 1338, bracket 01. Any further questions? Mr. To has gone out, so we can only stop here concerning Mr. To's paper. Now it's the turn for Mr. Chair. Earlier on, Mr. Chair wrote to the Bills Committee concerning the exchange between the administration and the Law Society. My apologies. You might have noticed that the DS has formally given a written reply to Mr. Chair. I believe Mr. Chair has got the reply just tabled. First, I have to apologize that I am not able to provide the reply earlier. As I have said, we try to address the various issues pertaining to one instrument covering several properties. I will not repeat the administration's position. You might have heard me many times before. And we've already listed our factors of consideration. I want to address several points made by Mr. Chair. He has looked into the replies by the administration. He is concerned about the government's approach in its announcement of the policy. On paragraph 3, we've stated our position on stamp duty on an instrument basis. In fact, in the web page of the IRD Q&A, our FAQ, and also our reply to the Law Society, we have also put that in the paper for members' reference. Our position has all along been consistent and clear. The design of double stamp duty is to give exemption if the buyer doesn't have any other property and he is a permanent resident of Hong Kong. And that's the basis of drawing up the double stamp duty. The position has all along been very clear. The market will be very sensitive to any change in policy. In terms of our position, in terms of our messages, we have to be consistent and clear. We have to take into account of the system. We have to take into account of the impact on the people or the market at large. Therefore, we maintain our status quo. If a person doesn't have a property and he buys several properties through an instrument to make to meet his housing needs, then the AVD will be charged on the basis of the instrument. Well, I'm glad to hear that the administration is consistent, but if we look into the records, the administration has not been consistent. If I may explain that in detail.
Chairman, regarding this paper, I'd like to first ask a question. In relation to page 4, where I think starting from at the bottom, page 3 to page 4, that is paragraph D, you say that
2013 咧 ，IOD has uploaded onto its website some frequently asked questions 嗰度咧，我想先了解下嗰度你哋個 F。
To know first of all, when did you upload the FAQ? The way you say it, you give the impression that on the 22nd of February 2013, you've already put it onto the FAQ on the website. When did you upload that on the website? Well, the exact date, I believe the ILD can tell you that. Now, who would like to respond? Mr. Tam. After the FS made the announcement, it was the evening when the FS made the announcement, we uploaded the FAQ on the website. All the FAQ in respect of Section 22, 32, yes, beg your pardon. So why? On the 22nd of February 2013, in your document to the Law Society, for example, paragraph C,
特別關於
about Roman letter I, or Roman letter I, you say,
我 A 嘅，喺嗰陣時你哋係冇提。
at that time you never mentioned the instrument-based approach. You used the word a singular A, the article A. And many people in the trade and other members, like including Mr. To and many lawyers, think that you are only providing for a single exemption of A property. Last time we talked about car parks. You say that if a car park is attached, there will not be any exemption. So were you negligent in dealing with this? As the ILD said just now, in designing the BSD, it was based on the total consideration for the instrument. If the instrument includes so in designing the policy, we know very clearly. We all know that in dealing with this policy, when we need to manage the demand, we must also take this on board, and that's why we believe the policy will need to be consistent. On the ILD website and the papers that we've FAQ that we've uploaded, we have one particular section clarifying this point. In the guidelines issued by the ILD, when charging taxes relating to residential properties, it also mentioned that if the instrument involved a residential property, again, the tax will be charged on the basis of the total consideration for that instrument. And that has always been the arrangement we've been using. In our correspondence with the Law Society, we also had met with the Law Society, and that issue had been raised on different occasions. Myself and my colleagues from the ILD and other policy bureaus and have raised this with the Law Society. Other than the paper, we've also explained in person to them. We also have an official paper issued by our bureau for the Law Society, clarifying our position. So in the paper that we issued for the Law Society, which is also appended for this committee, in response to the issue raised by the Law Society, we've given a global response. Earlier, Mr. Paul TSE also referred to that letter. I myself did not take part in drafting the response to the letter, but my colleagues, in answering that the question, they they might not draft it in a very precise manner, but I think if you just say that the wording in a particular instrument is not precise enough, of course I have to apologize on behalf of my colleagues. But in the past, in relating to the instrument-based approach for the BSD, we have given a full and detailed account. For the benefit of members, I can certainly submit an extract of the document to this committee again to state that our policy has always been consistent. I'm very happy that the Permanent Secretary had refer to this. So which means that there have been confusion. That's why it have been debated. The Permanent Secretary's, the paper referred to the Permanent Secretary, that is in CB1 709-1313-02. You have this document appended, and that is the document to the Law Society by the FSCB. And in this letter, and on page 2, you say,
on 6 December 2013嗰度咧，實際上你哋講過喺嗰個會議裏邊咧，由於有
that meeting, since lawyers have raised this issue, so you had a discussion, and this letter confirms the outcome of that discussion. So this is the document is very clear, showing that initially you were very confused. Leaving aside the 32 FAQs, there is also confusion amongst lawyers. So coming back to the question of consistency, for those people who have been confused and have suffered losses, will you allow for a grace period? Madam Chair, the government's position is based on the proposals in the bill. When Mr. Chair referred to our discussion with Law Society and asked whether or not there have been some ambiguities or whether some members indicated that they were confused. I think the discussion at that time, especially as reflected in our reply, that they had raised several issues. They all involve the instrument. That is, if in the instrument involved residential unit or residential unit plus car park or residential plus non-residential properties, that was the background of the discussion, and we had an exchange with the Law Society in explaining the government's position. So that letter, in that letter, we have reiterated again the basis for charging the stamp duties. Mr. Chair, could you also tell us what are the possible grey areas? I understand your question. Just now, the Permanent Secretary said that on the 22nd of February last year, when they announced the measure, the FAQ will also put onto the website. I will take it that you are correct. Of course, you did upload the FAQ. And then you said that since some lawyers have expressed concern at your meeting with the Law Society on the 6th of December last year, that was 10 months afterwards. Even at this meeting, the issue was still discussed, and you had made some clarification. And subsequently, on the 24th of January this year, you sent out a letter to confirm the content of that meeting. If initially the government was so clear, that is, your policy is very clear that it's going to be instrument-based, and there wouldn't have been so much confusion. You still now discussing whether we should exempt instruments involving more than properties or property plus a car park. Of course, whether it's the trade and even the public have complained that some people at the time felt that and for a single instrument you only exempt one residential unit, and therefore they did not choose to buy more than one property unit through one instrument. So some of our lawyers actually gave wrong advice to the customers, and some people have suffered losses. And some people have reflected. Of course, it would be fair that for a single instrument there should only be one resident unit. But if the administration still insists on its own grounds, saying that you can allow for more than one property unit for one instrument, for those people who have been confused previously or misled by lawyers, then would they be able to enjoy the exemption? Madam Chair, our system in respect of the stamp duties ordinance, well, that is the basis. For this bill, there is no provision changing the system. So both the connotation of the law and the spirit of the bill and the effect that of the bill has not changed the arrangement. And we discussed this with Law Society. Indeed, throughout the entire discussion, we discussed not only technical issues, we also discussed policy matters. For example, people replacing the property within 6 months and non-residential units. Regarding the instrument-based approach, they asked whether there might be some concern. It was against that background that we further clarify our position. So we believe that in this respect, we need to, our system has never changed all along, and members of the public and the practitioners, for them, if we were to make any changes now, again, it will result in more controversies, and there will also be, confusion. Mr. Chair, you say some people had received the legal advice that the exemption only will be for one instrument. It will only cover one residence unit, and as a result, they've suffered losses. So that's why I said, shouldn't there be a grace period? There should be a cut-off date after the government has made the clarification. Only then should they implement this requirement that a single instrument can cover more than one unit, or should we follow the cut-off line? Madam Chair, as I said, the government's position from the time we announced these measures, we have also put onto the website the details. So the government's position is very clear.
如果啲車位咧，譬如一早知道你哋最
For car parks, if we knew that the car parks would not be exempted, the last week you say it could be exempted. So if there have been people or if lawyers have recommended that for a single instrument it will only allow for a single residence unit or a single car park, what about people who have losses because of that? What? So the commencement date or the effective date. Now I can also give a global response regarding the period for the replacement of property and also the exemption for property plus a car park. Well, this is the CSA proposed by the administration. If electrical passes the bill, which includes the CSA, then it will be incorporated into the bill which is enacted, and then it will be retrospective to the 23rd of February 2013. The instrument-based approach we mentioned earlier, all along in the bill, we've not changed that arrangement, and therefore there is no question of a retrospective effect. So you're saying that if your adjustment were accepted, then the extension of the replacement, the period for the replacement of property will be retrospective to the date you announce these measures. So all people who replace the properties would benefit. Yes, we stand by the spirit of the amendment bill. That is why we always say there shouldn't be the negative vetting approach. Every time you have some better policies or some clarification you want to make, you're talking about February 2013. Many people already made decisions which cannot be reversed now, but now you're saying that you are making it retrospective back to that date. So the confusion you've said something which has caused confusion, and this is very unfair to some people, including people who bought car parks or people who otherwise have bought more than one property per instrument. I think Mr. Chair's point. Well, the adjustment mechanism indeed is complicated. What we're concerned about is that when at the time the government made the announcement, there is a basis for the law. That the best thing is to go for negative vetting, and then we gazette the tax rate or whatever, and then it will immediately have an immediately legislative effect, and so long.
去提出先訂立後審議嘅嗰個。
Now proposing the negative vetting approach, and it's not about the policies arrangements, but rather the tax rate and the tax brackets. That is where we need the more clarity and the certainty. So we're now proposing measures because the market needs the certainty and the clarity, and also the law governing the collection of the taxes. And Mr. Chair exactly is highlighting these points.
You're neither certain nor clear. Originally, you said that car parks would not be exempted. Now, car parks could be exempted. Originally, people thought that there could only be one instrument per one property. Now, in fact, it's one instrument can cover several properties. Now, many people are affected. Not too many, quite too many of them, quite a lot of them say because you started it from the 23rd of February 2013. In fact, you put yourself in a catch-22 situation, and people really don't believe that the administration is sincere in passing its laws. You just follow the decision of the CE, who thinks that by making such a decision, he gets the most number of votes. Now, it does have retrospective effect, which commenced with the other demand management measures. Now, after we've announced measures, any amendment will have to be studied by this Bills Committee, and we cannot rule out any amendments. We cannot exclude any amendments. If we are to make any adjustment, and if we are to increase the restriction on the measure, then it will have far-reaching impacts on different groups of people, and we have to be very clear. Mr. James To.
角度，即係你政府係比較係寬鬆嘅咧，就係、如果你假設一開始你嗰個藍紙草案係
taxation point of view, if your bill proposes to charge more tax, and later you give a relaxation, the final product, when enacted, will lead to less revenue. So there is a simple thing the government can do, and that's return the money, which is overcharged. Now, if you add tax, then you can say that from the day of announcement, then you will charge the higher tax, but before the day of announcement, you charge a lower tax. That solves the problem. If the government is not mean, then the problem can be overcome easily. Now, Chairman, I think the principle can be like this. I've missed one point, and that's very important. I think, did Mr. Chair mention the car park? The car parks administration allowed a relaxation. Now, for those who complied with the condition mentioned by the Policy Secretary, then the tax money is still in the hands of the law firms. Now, if we can pass your proposal in this thick pile of paper, then they don't need to pay tax, right? Yes, it does have retrospective effect up to the date of the announcement of other demand management measures. I don't want to interrupt Mr. To, but I want to put the question. It's not whether the money, give him the question. It's not the money is with the law firm. People have already chosen the approach of one instrument per unit, or one instrument per many car parks. Now, one instrument, many properties. The administration insists that there will not be double stamp duty. But if next week I make a proposal and it becomes a decision of this committee, a Bills Committee, and the chairman moves the amendment, and then if it is enacted, then it will be changed. And then when I talk to the legal advisor, I think I should thank Mr. Chair. Should we set a different date for the amendment, for the commencement of the amendment? If there is no amendment to reduce the tax, then there may be less members who will support the proposal. In fact, Ms. Kenneth Kwok moved an amendment to the Stamp Duty 2012 bill. He made a similar proposal. Now, I think Mr. Chair refers to a decision made by a buyer, and it has already been executed, and therefore there is no reversal, unless the administration takes a lenient attitude. If it is if it shouldn't be charged, then the money will be returned. but but the decision has already been made, and it has already an implication on whether the tax has to be paid or not. Now, for those who suffered, they can be exempted. Maybe we can discuss that when the motion comes before us. Mr. Chair, shall we stop here concerning your letter? Okay, we move on to the next paper, and that is the administration's response to the questions raised by members at previous meetings. Yes, I want to ask one more question concerning next week's motion, and that's about the TPS. I want to ask the administration whether it will not give exemption to TPS because the housing authority is very strict. The first sale is sold to the first time the unit is sold to the sitting tenant. So they must be permanent residents. Giving them exemption is a good measure. I think they have amended this. That is still another possibility. Maybe you can explain that. Now, what scenario is dealt with? What scenario is not dealt with? I want to know. If they can give a blanket exemption, that solves the problem. The property is sold to the sitting tenant for the first time. If the buyer is not a sitting tenant, there must be a reason. So there is no abuse or speculation. Have you received complaints? People are concerned that if the bill is passed, one adjustment is from $200 to a certain percentage. Will that adjustment affect the TPS, tenant purchase scheme? Last time when we discussed the TPS, the concern was this. The housing authority has a long-standing policy. The buyer has to be above the age of 18. That's the policy requirement. And there are individual cases in which the sitting tenant is less than 18. When he buys the property because it's less than 18, the guardian or the parent or the close relative, though maybe a sitting tenant, is not a permanent resident, so they have to buy BSD, they have to buy they have to pay DSD. In dealing with that, under DSD, if an overall exemption is given to TPS, that cannot be possible. As for individual cases, I know that the housing authority or housing department have handled cases on DSD and BSD, and the amount of money is rather big because of the increase in tax rate. The housing authority or housing department have contacted these families. With regard to the payment of the stamp duty and also the value of the property, they are considering various measures, including whether the stamp duty can be paid by installments. And the IRD is talking to these families. I think you need to clarify this problem. Now you have to consider paying by installment and by installment over a long period of time. Now the stamp duty is based on market price, not on the transaction price. And for a TPS tenant, that is astronomical sum because it will be a few $100,000. It may be a few $100,000. I think exemption is a must. Please deal with that. As for ad valorem tax, AVD, it is increased from $100 to 1.5% in one tax ban, the first tax ban. Will that affect the TPS buyers? The adjustment will be applicable to all residential properties. Therefore, TPS units are also covered. Please go back to consider it very seriously. They have received your bill $60,000 to over $100,000. And now you tell them that the tax will be increased from $100 to a certain percentage according to market value. That's another astronomical sum. I think members of this council will receive numerous complaints. Chairman, you have reminded me this. I think we have not discussed this issue. The first tax ban is not double. It's just about a single, the original tax level. Property prices have risen on the whole. What is the market price, generally speaking? If we add this first tax ban from $100 to a certain percent, or to a certain percentage, how many people will be affected? That's a tax increase proposal. I don't know how that will dampen property speculation. I'm not talking about DST. It includes an adjustment which is not related to double stamp duty. It will affect thousands of TPS buyers. I hope the administration will work with the housing authority and give us the details since February 2013. I cannot recall exactly. The sale of TPS units. How many hundred? How many range? How many thousand of them? And what are the amounts of stamp duty paid? And how do they relate to dampening speculation? If it is, should it really be applicable to TPS? We have never discussed it in detail. You need to pay attention to that. We all know the TPS buyers are public rental housing tenants. They buy at a lower than market price, and now you charge them a much higher rate, and then at market value you can consider their difficulties. These are people who have little means. They are unable to pay such high stamp duty, and we encourage them to buy property. Chairman. Well, we need to defend the integrity of the demand management measure. When we consider the transactions of a group of people and give them certain special treatment, we have to be careful. When we consider the tax ban, we have to consider tax bans. We have to consider the integrity of the tax bans. And we've noticed the TPS cases mentioned by members, individual cases. We will talk to the housing department and provide the paper from the effectiveness with regard to the effectiveness of the measures and the strength of the measures. We need to maintain the integrity of the policy.
阿涂議員係。
唔係主席，我心情今。
The toll. Well, I'm in a good mood today. Otherwise, I would have had a very strong reaction against what the Permanent Secretary said. What do you mean by integrity? Integrity means that you need to ensure that those that through the stamp duty you want to deter people add to the cost and so that they will think twice about speculating. But remember, for the TPS scheme, we want people to buy their own properties and whether or not, well, of course, it's their decision to buy the property or not. But the policy intent is to allow them to buy these units because they can then own the properties and have the security. Among the property buyers, when there are people who don't buy properties, of course, but for the people who buy these TPS units, I think it doesn't have any impact on the integrity of your policy at all, unless you say that by integrity you can put it down. That is, through the $100 from $100 you increase it to several thousand or several tens of thousands of dollars because you want to deter people. And you're telling them, think twice before you buy the TPS units. The HA may not want you to buy these units. Don't buy it if the prices are so high. Wait until prices have fallen, at which time we can sell it to you at a cheaper price. In that case, you're saying we're suggesting you don't want them to buy the units. But remember that the purpose of the TPS, the TPS scheme was spearheaded by the Housing Authority. It's not that you should tell people that they shouldn't buy now and they can buy later, and that they can buy it when the prices are cheaper. That's not the case. So all I can say is that, Madam Chair, I think this topic has never been discussed in detail. If the government, I think the government should give us a paper telling us how many units are we talking about, so that once you make the decision, we know that how much extra money these people have to pay. And originally, if they only pay $100, then what is the percentage increase in terms of cost? And also, will it result in will it defeat the purpose that we want the PRH tenants, having the security of owning their properties? One more point. Exemption and implementation in stages are different. If you do it in stages, they still have to pay unless you want to, spread out the payment over, 10,000 years. Then they'll pay you $1 a month, and I won't argue with you. If you say this is going to be spread out, over 100 million years, then fine. They only pay an extra $1 per annum. That would be tantamount to giving them an exemption. If you like, you can adopt this approach. So long as you say you're willing to do this. For TPS tenants, the BST that they have to pay, you spread it out over 100 million years, then they only need to pay $1 a year. Then I won't move a CSA in that case. Give us a paper at the next meeting. Okay. For these demand management measures, they are not aimed at TPS units. I think the Housing Authority have been encouraging the tenants to buy these units. With these draconian measures in demand management measures in place, I don't say it should affect these people. It shouldn't add to the cost of buying such units. And once they bought the TPS scheme, they will not sell it out again. So for people who bought the properties during this period, they are only ordinary citizens. If all of a sudden they receive a bill from the IRD amounting to several tens of thousands of dollars, they don't know how to cope with it. I mean, it's a huge amount for them. Some even come to our office and cry. Your policy intent is not to hit against these people. Please go back and think about this again, so that you will not hurt or add to the burden of these tenants. I hope the government will think more carefully. Don't force us. If you create victims here and there, and you still don't listen to our advice, then in the end, I only need to find a balance here. On the one hand, I think double stamp duty is all right because it can help curb speculation and blah blah blah. Okay. On the other hand, you have created such a large number of victims. We're talking about hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of victims. So I really have to ask myself whether or not I will support this bill. I may not. then you have, in which case you have to, propose another bill that I'm willing to accept. That's the only choice I have. So don't think that we are bluffing. We are not. If if the amount these people have to pay increases from $100 to many times that amount, they only bought the property for $300,000. Remember also that, I say this once again, right? If you increase the property value by $100,000, I can still pay by mortgage. But the tax I'm liable to pay cannot be mortgage unless the Secretary says he is going to spread out the payment over 100 million years. Then I can accept that. But that's not the case. Okay, I think that point has been made very clear. So could you please go back and think about this? Our objective certainly is not to hit against these TPS tenants. I think there's one more paper we need to discuss, and that is the responses to by the government to the concerns expressed, one of which is about TPS. I think when we discussed this paper, we already touched the point about the TPS scheme. We'll certainly, provide members with our views and the figures. Regarding minor and technical amendments and so on, I think we've already given an account of our position in another paper. We have reiterated our response here. Regarding the point raised by members at the last meeting, Ms. Lam Tai Fai and other members suggested that we should clarify the meaning of beneficial owners, and if someone holds property in the name of a company, how do we deal with that? And we've also explained here that the company should be an entity independent of the shareholder. The fourth point is about the sunset clause. At the last time when the Secretary made the announcement, we already reiterated our view regarding the sunset provision, and we maintain our view that if we were to create a sunset provision, it's not realistic. It will, affect the market's expectations and stimulate demand. Mr. To, I have one more question because it's connected to the amendment that I'm working on. Property replacement is, 6 months, and we're now talking about an extension. I don't know whether I'm asking the wrong question. You can correct me if I'm wrong. What about succession? Let's say, can I inherit a property? Let's say, from the time I bought the property, and then within 6 months, let's say, my father passed away, and the property is divided into 5 parts and so on, and I give my share to my elder brother. Am I selling the property? I know, but I may need to go through the procedures. I may have to forfeit my rights to my elder brother and so on. Will the 6-month provision also apply in this case, or do we need to provide for a different provision? Permanent Secretary. Perhaps I can defer to my colleagues.
邊位回應呢？
Would like to respond. In section DF of the bill, it is mentioned that if there is no S&P agreement, we will work on the basis of the conveyance of a sale in calculating the 6 months. So if we talk about inheritance, there should also be a conveyance of sale. So for the property to be transferred, under the title of the taxpayer. I understand that we will start counting the 6 months from the conveyance of sale. No, so the trustee or so let's say the the father has passed away, the property is vested to 5 sons, and then I will own 20% of the property. All right, so I own 1/5 of the property unit, and I have bought a property. I have to pay double stamp duty unless within 6 months I dispose of my 1/5 of that property. But that fifth, I'm not selling it to my elder brother. I'm just giving it to them as a gift. So would that gift satisfy? Would it satisfy the technical amendment? Do you understand my point? So, okay, if I have property, I sold it. Fine. Could you check this up for me, just to be sure? If it also applies, and I will not need to move another amendment. Would you go back and find out? Yeah, we will check. Well, our bill is very objective. We will look at the instrument, so we need to check the. I'm giving it, to someone else. Okay. Yeah, we check it against the provision regarding the instrument. Permanent Secretary. So I think one can give away the title not only upon inheritance of a property, but he could do it at any time. So yeah, correct. So please give us a reply at the next meeting. Any further questions on this paper regarding CP? That is the government's response to the concerns raised in April. So I think it's almost time to wrap up. Our next meeting will be scheduled for May the 27th, 4:30, a Tuesday. We'll be discussing the CSA's proposed move by the government. The government has already proposed the technical amendments and the consequential amendments pursuant to his speech. So we'll move on to the scrutiny of CSA at the next meeting. Mr. Tosu, the Secretary, will have already served notice that he will be moving some CSAs. So with that, I think we may now adjourn. Thank you.